Hello and welcome back to Only One Bread, where I'm talking about the Burning Maze today. Um, I have already filmed a couple of clips where I was very upset and crying hysterically while reading this. I haven't decided if I'm going to put those clips first. I think I might put this clip first, just to kind of give this video a little bit of structure and a little bit less chaos. So basically what this video is going to be is some reading updates and a review at the end of The Burning Maze. I have also realized that I have been very bad with my videos up till now, when I've been giving reading updates, because I am very caught up in the throes of passion of reading a particular book, and I kind of just assume that whoever's listening has already read this book and is just looking for somebody else's opinions. And I'm sure that there will be people out there who are watching it like in that category. There will be people out there in that category who will be watching this video, but not everyone will be. So I'm going to try and give it a little bit more context. So to be fair though, if you're watching this video, it's a little bit random because this is the third book in a series, which is the third series of a multiverse of books. So basically, this is the third book in the Trials of Apollo series, which is the third series in the Camp Half-Blood Chronicles multiverse of Rick Riordan's books, which are based upon Greek and Roman mythology. You might know the first series, the Percy Jackson series, which is much more well known. The second series is the Heroes of Olympus series, in which Percy Jackson is still a main character, but he's no longer the only main character. There's a kind of cast of 7 demigods who go on this quest. And now this series, Percy is in them slightly, and some of the characters from the Heroes of Olympus series and the original Percy Jackson series also appear in this, but the main character in this series is the god Apollo, who, because of events that transpired at the end of the Heroes of Olympus series, is blamed by his father Zeus for certain things that happened, and he is basically cursed with being mortal. And his quest is, because he is the god of prophecy and the oracles, his quest is to kind of reclaim these oracles that have lost power over the centuries. And there is this kind of mysterious force in the background who I won't reveal who it is yet. I don't think I will reveal it in this video actually, because it's not really relevant to what I want to talk about. Who are basically trying to sabotage him and are trying to gain control of the oracles and therefore gain control of the future and kind of gain ultimate control, ultimate world domination, and domination of the future as well. They can control what happens if they have control of the oracles, because the oracles foretell the future. So that's what Apollo's mission is, and he's very awkward. He's a mess because he's really not used to being mortal. He has some skills. He's a decent musician and a decent archer because he was the god of music and archery in the past, but it's often not enough in the situations that he gets himself in, and I'm absolutely loving this series. So that's the intro. One thing I wanted to talk about, and you will only understand this if you have read these books and you know things, but I just wanted to say that this is what happened. So basically, I'm in the part towards the end where he's basically, so spoilers from here on out, he's basically in this maze. I'm going to try and explain it even to the people who have not read this, which is basically the heart of the third oracle, because there are 5 oracles for the 5 books. And Piper, who's one of the demigods who's helping him, basically says, she comes and she saves him, and spoiler, kills Medea, the ancient sorceress. If you know, you know. This has been in a lot of these books. And she says, I'll tell, one good stab in the back deserves another. Piper kissed Medea on the cheek. I tell you to say hello to Jason for me, but he'll be in Elysium and you won't. And I just think that, honestly, there is so much symbolism and perfect mirrored, what's it called? Mirrored symbolism. How it happens a lot with Piper now, with what she did to Medea just now, and also with the fact that she basically after the battle where, spoiler, Jason died. Honestly, I'm sorry, I can't keep you up. I can't speak about this in like, because I was gonna try to like include people who haven't read these books and like explain them and keep myself in like a kind of neutral like third party tone in order for everybody to feel included. Like, I'm sorry, I can't do it because the whole point of these books at the end of the day is for me to express my thoughts and I can't do it. So she got her face really messed up, and especially her upper lip, and she's now had it stitched, but she talks about how she will always have a scar in her upper lip. And I don't know, I do think this is intentional, even if it isn't. Like, I'm making it intentional because death of the author, I don't care what the author intended. By the way, I'm not saying kill Rick. Death of the author is a term used in like literary analysis where you basically discard the author's opinions. It's one way of basically interpreting a literary text, by saying death of the author, as in you don't look at what the author says. J.K. Rowling. Sorry. You don't look at what the author says after the series being published or anything like that. You just take it at face value and analyze it to however you would like to. And I'm analyzing it in this way. She's been left with a scar on her upper lip, which is the same as what Jason had. And I just think that's so beautiful. And honestly, like, I think that this was a really good decision. The fact that he also basically chose to have them broken up for his death, because the emotions that she must be feeling, because they basically, like, even though she loves him and she sees him as like her best friend, but she realized that she didn't really see him romantically and or didn't really want to kind of put that pressure upon herself because their relationship started with a lie, to kind of, even though she cares so much about him, to have been in that limbo and suddenly for him to be gone and they haven't hashed out anything, and it's just so brutally realistic because in real life you're not going to get the opportunity to say goodbye. You're not going to get the opportunity to kind of cleanly, like, settle all of your debates and get all your affairs in order before you say goodbye. You know how you get in Hollywood films where someone's dying but you get to kind of kneel down next to them and they say something profound, and none of that happened. His death was so quick, so brutal, so raw. It didn't happen. My God, you know what? I'm gonna stop because I actually want to talk about his death more properly at the end with the proper review. So we'll get there. This was just like a comment about Piper. The camera quality is so bad that you can't even tell that I'm crying. I have been crying for a while now, but I haven't updated because A, I have something cooking on the stove, and I try not to do like too many things when I've got something cooking in case it like burns. And yeah, I am nearly done. Well, not nearly done. I still have about 100 pages. So I'm very much nearing the end of the Burning Maze, and I haven't updated at all. Mostly because I've been ill for the last week or so, and I've been doing a lot of reading because I've been too ill to do anything else. But I haven't been feeling up for posting or filming any updates. I think that if you've read this book, you know exactly why I'm crying. And I'm gonna say a couple things before I go into like spoiler mode. I think I knew that this was going to happen. I suspected it was going to be in this book as well, but still, something's happened and I cried. I read the thing that happened, I actually read it yesterday, but now I'm seeing like reactions to it and that's making it worse. I don't think, oh, I don't know. I don't even know why I filmed this. I don't have I'm not coherent enough to make this video to talk about this right now. He really just wants to kill me with this book. Is this just a thing that he does with like pentalogies written in the first POV? Because this basically just feels like a 10 times more brutal version of the Titan's Curse. The way that we lost Bianca and then we lost Zoe. Because we lost Crest, and I know we only met him during this book, but oh my god, I've literally got goosebumps all over me. Just listen to this, listen to it. Crest was no longer listening. His eyes had turned glassy, his tortured muscles relaxed. His body crumbled, collapsing inward until the ukulele sat on a pile of dust, a small, sad monument to my many failures. That sounds really random. It's just because I think they're called pandos. I think they are. I'm not sure where they come from because I've never heard of them before, but I think they're more like Indian mythology. But anyhow, it's a humanoid race, and this individual, Crest, wanted to learn to play the ukulele. I know it sounds really random, but he was clutching it. I don't know how long I knelt there, dazed and shaking. It hurt to sob. I sobbed anyway. Finally, Piper crouched next to me. Her face was sympathetic, but I thought somewhere behind her lovely multicolored eyes she was thinking, another life lost for your sake, Lester. Another death you couldn't fix. She did not say that. She sheathed her knife. We grieve later, she said. Right now our job isn't done. Our job. She had come to our aid, despite everything that had happened, despite Jason. I could not fall apart now. At least, no more than I had already. It's just like, it's. My man Apollo is gonna need so much therapy after this. Speaking of therapy, this is just another passage I just thought of because I've marked it. I'm just having like emotional whiplash. This was another funny passage from a few hundred pages before, where he said, I wondered not for the first time why we Greek deities had never created a god of family therapy. We certainly could have used one, or perhaps we had one before I was born and she quit, or Kronos swallowed her whole. And I think that's just that's just an intelligent joke to make for Greek mythology. But it's so true because honestly, like everybody needs therapy. Lester needs like a therapist that has a therapist. Man, it's always like the aftermath. Oh god, that's my oven. It's always like the aftermath of something, of a death that gets you. Because they're taking his body, they're taking Jason's body back to Camp Jupiter. And the fact that he doesn't even have a family to grieve him, like his only family is Talia. And she doesn't even know. I have goosebumps all over. But the thing was that he belonged to both camps, and it almost feels like it's a real shame because we never actually saw much of Jason in Camp Jupiter, like his home, and they kind of Rick did that whole kind of plot line in Heroes of Olympus, where he kind of implied that he was more at home in Camp Half-Blood, but he wasn't. He was a part of both camps. So I'm just going to read this. I looked at the diorama of Temple Hill, all the little Monopoly tokens, carefully labelled in Jason's hand. I read the label Apollo. I could hear Jason's voice in my mind, saying my name, asking me for one favour. Whatever happens when you get back to Olympus, when you're a god again, remember. Remember what it's like to be human. This, I thought, was being human. Standing on the tarmac, watching mortals load the body of a friend and hero into the cargo hold, knowing that he would never be coming back. Saying goodbye to a grieving young woman who had done everything to help us, and knowing you could never repay her, never compensate her for all that she'd lost. Piper, It's fine, she said. Just get to Camp Jupiter safely. Let them give Jason the Roman burial he deserves. Stop Caligula. Her words weren't bitter, as I might have expected. They were simply arid, like Palm Springs air. No judgment, just natural heat. It just occurred to me that they're gonna fly over there with Jason's body in a coffin, and they're gonna land and they're gonna have to tell Raina and Frank and Hazel. So I actually cried about this a few days ago, but I just also wanted to say Leo just got hit and he didn't know and he was so happy and he asked them where's Jason. And you know, it just reminds me so much of how in Titans Girls, how Nico looks at everyone and says where's Bianca. And it's like the last time that we see him like truly happy. And Leo didn't even get to say goodbye. Like, they haven't seen each other since Leo went to kill Gaia at the end of Blood of Olympus. Like, they haven't seen each other since then. I didn't even say goodbye, he murmured. Piper shook her head. Me neither. It happened so fast, he did what Jason always did, Leo said. He saved the day. I feel so bad because, like, for so much of the series, like, I complained and I used to say that he was, like, so boring, but, like, looking back, that was the point. He came across as boring because he was a person and a character that prioritized duty above everything, and he prioritized, you know, doing the gods proud and doing everything by the book. He's not like Percy, who challenged the rules at every step, and he got nothing for it. Where was Zeus for him? Nowhere. He at least cared about Talia enough to turn her into a tree at the last moment. He didn't give a fuck about him. Excuse my language, I don't think I've sworn yet. I'm sorry. It's whenever they mention him, it's when Leo tells them to take him home. This is really well done. As in, oh my god, I've got goosebumps everywhere. It's really well done because you get to see the aftermath As in, there's a coffin and there are arrangements to be made, and they're loading his coffin into the plane to take him to Camp Jupiter to be buried, and it's like, never before in this series have we had to face the consequences of death. Like I said before, like, it's always been kind of like quick and over. And we never got to see the aftermath of Selena's death. We never got to see the aftermath of Bianca's death. Bianca, there wasn't even a body. She just disappeared. I think, I can't remember if I filmed myself. I think I was just crying uncontrollably and I couldn't. I don't remember if I bookmarked it, but there was a point where he describes him. Okay, I found it. Jason's skin was the colour of blank parchment, speckled with slime, sand, and foam. The sea had washed away the blood, but his school shirt was stained as purple as a senatorial sash. Arrows protruded from his arms and legs. His right hand was fixed in a pointing gesture, as if he were still telling us to go. His expression didn't seem tortured or scared. He looked at peace, as if he'd just managed to fall asleep after a hard day. I didn't want to wake him. Just the way that that's described, this is so real, like, for a kid's book, like I've said like 1,000 times before. Hello. So I finished it. I finished The Burning Maze. I actually finished it last night. It's now the next day because I finished it really late last night and I didn't feel like updating, but I finished it just after one of the last updates that I did. I'm also going to be sipping on some mulled wine in my cute fox mug. Also, if this video gets really chaotic, it is because I am a little bit drunk. I had a glass of port wine earlier, and now I'm having this mug of mulled wine. To be fair, it's only 8% alcohol. Watch me inhale a clove. Oh, I know what you're thinking. Why don't you just take them out? I like it when they're in there because they add flavour when I'm sipping it. I don't want to like strain it because then I'm afraid that I'm going to get rid of the cinnamon. Okay. Honestly, this review is just basically going to be spoilers. Get out, because I can't talk about this book without talking about the spoilers. The big fat massive spoiler, which if you have read this book or you know anything about the Ridenverse, you read the previous books but decided not to read TOA, you probably know where I'm going with this. Jason dies in this book. And it hit me like a freight train, actually. Like, I knew it was coming, but I didn't know it was coming. I didn't know 100% that it was coming in this book. I kind of suspected that it was coming in this book because he got introduced in this book. And also, like, I had kind of seen things online talking about the Burning Maze. I tried to scroll away so I'm not spoiled, but you know, sometimes you can't, you end up seeing things. So I kind of suspected this is the book where he dies in. However, I was not prepared for how quickly he dies. He is in, I want to say something like 50 pages of this book. He is introduced, he agrees to go with Apollo and Meg on this mission to infiltrate Caligula's, and Piper as well is there, to infiltrate Caligula's, like, he's got basically this, like, line of yachts, across the bay, and he agrees to infiltrate it so they can store his shoes, because there's, I'm sorry, I'm just sipping it because I don't want it to get cold. Because there's prophecy that Apollo needs Caligula's shoes to be able to navigate the maze. And he just dies in that mission. And a lot of people complain about this death. And I think this is another reason why people don't like the Trials of Apollo series. But I actually think that it was perfect. And I feel so bad about it. I'm sorry. If you have watched my previous videos, you know that I'm recovering from a chest infection, and today was my first day that I went back into placement. I haven't talked very much about what I do. I've mentioned it briefly, but for your information, I am a full-time medical student on my clinical years. So I spend my days basically doing unpaid work in the hospital. Work is a stretch, to be fair. I'm there kind of following other doctors around, sometimes seeing patients on my own. But anyway, I don't want to talk about that at all. Um, this is my free time to talk about middle grade books. Let's hope my future patients aren't watching this. Um, so, I'm sorry. I literally had to pause the video because I had a little bit of a mind blank. So, the reason that I think that his death was perfect in terms of what the series needed, several reasons. I think even though we have had deaths, basically this entire video is basically going to be talking about Jason's death because it completely overshadowed anything and everything else that happened in this book. I think it was a great book. I rated it 5 stars on Goodreads. I've rated the previous 2 TOA books 5 stars. However, this one is, in my opinion, even better. It didn't disappoint me in any way. The way The Dark Prophecy did slightly disappoint me due to the lack of confrontation between Caligula and... No, not Caligula, sorry, between Commodus and Apollo. However, it is, spoilers, explicitly revealed in this book, or is it, because I've started Tyrant's Tomb now, so I'm a bit confused, or in Titan's Tomb, that Commodus is still alive. So I'm still crossing my fingers, hoping for that to happen at some point in the future. My neighbors are making noise and they're going to make me lose it again. The reason being that, sorry, I was just saying how much I love this book. We have had deaths in the Ridenverse before. I've mentioned them when I'm talking about them. I mentioned them, I think, in some of the previous cry sessions I had. We had Selina's death, we had Bianca's death, we had Beckendorf's death. I think that was it. We didn't have any main deaths within the Heroes of Olympus trilogy, pentalogy, from what I can think of. Apart from minor, really minor characters. I know that Selina, that's my point, is that Selina, Bianca, they were recurring characters, so they were around quite often. It's not like the joke about Star Trek killing off the red shirts completely indiscriminately. They were real people, they were real characters, they did have some depth. However, up till now, all kind of the main characters have been protected by plot armor, and you read these quests and you read them in danger, and I think that at this point especially we've kind of stopped believing it is real. So I think the fact that he chose to kill off a major character, someone who had POV chapters in the previous series, someone who was one of the main protagonists, someone who was arguably the main protagonist of The Lost Hero, the main character of a book, to have the balls to kill them off, honestly, is very commendable and respectable. Also, I said this before, the fact of the way that it's done, he dies in a very trivial, well, not trivial, but, in just another battle. He's faced so much worse. He faced Gaia, he faced Krios, one of the most powerful titans, and he perishes, he dies on a quest to help Apollo, and is killed by the kind of reincarnated spirit of a Roman emperor. It seems very niche, it seems very random, but honestly, I think it works because it makes you realize just how much these characters are risking on a day-to-day life. It makes you realize that any one of them could have died on any one of the even most minor encounters that they have had over the last 2 series. That all of this is truly life and death, and it has been kind of mere chance that up till now they have survived. I thought it was also, like I said, the way that he dies, it's not even his POV. He doesn't get to say goodbye to anyone. He hasn't even seen Leo. He hasn't seen him in months. He went months and months thinking that he's dead. he recently broke up with Piper. They've left things kind of up in the air. It's not even established clearly to the reader why they broke up. He has there's things that have been left unsaid with him and Piper. He didn't even get to say bye to her. The way he dies, even though it's quite trivial, the battle is quite trivial. Need to drink. I did still appreciate the symbolism of the way that he died, because Jason has always been someone that has struggled with his identity. He is arguably probably the saddest, one of the saddest in the seven. He has no parental support whatsoever. His mother, is dead, and he doesn't even have Leo's consolation, who he has a dead mother, but at least he knows that his mother loved him. Jason's mother didn't really care very much about him. I'm gonna get emotional, and he's not particularly not even making top 10 of Zeus's children. So he has always been someone who really struggled with identity. He was raised by a rabid wolf goddess. He rose through the ranks of Camp Jupiter. He's always been somebody who puts dignity and not dignity as well, and duty above everything else. He was exactly the type of person who would die to save everyone else. More than Percy ever was, I think. And I think that's not that Percy wouldn't die for you, but I feel like Percy is more the type of person who would kind of burn the world for you. He would find a way to save you both. And that kind of becomes explicitly clear when he and Annabeth fall to Tartarus. Percy refuses to yield. Percy would go dark. Percy would bloodbend. Percy would raise the world and the gods in order to save himself and the people that he loves. I think ultimately he would also sacrifice himself. But I think Jason has a purity of heart that kind of means that he would be willing to die if it meant the greater good for the whole world. And that is exactly what he does. He put himself forwards and angered himself in the eyes of and angered Zeus, and made himself look bad in the eyes of Zeus, is what I was trying to say, during the final fight in Blood of Olympus, which is probably partly why he was allowed to be killed, because if Zeus really cared, he could have saved him by standing up for his half brother Apollo, who he doesn't even know. And I won't lie, I really wish, the one complaint I kind of have about this book is the fact that I know why he did it, the fact that he was in and out of the book so quickly, but I do kind of wish that the relationship between Apollo and Jason would have been explored a little bit longer. Because Apollo explicitly talks about how he's obviously the son of Zeus. He, like Jason, like probably every single son of Zeus, has an inferiority complex. He's got, problems with the fact that Zeus is his father, understandably so. And he's never really experienced any solidarity for any of his half siblings. He says that the only sibling that he feels like a sibling towards is his full sibling, his twin Artemis, understandably so. So the fact that he is kind of discovering having a brother for the first time, I think that should have been explored a little bit. I kind of wish that Jason had been mentioned earlier in the books, maybe in Trials of Apollo, and then maybe he kind of popped back in for the Burning Maze. Then it would still have that kind of shock factor of him appearing and dying within 50 pages, but it would kind of have built a little bit more of the relationship. That's my only one complaint, but even that is minor because everything else in this book and in the series so far has been executed so beautifully, in my opinion. And I had another point. The thing is that I used to complain about how Jason was boring and how he had no personality and how it was silly of Rick to kind of introduce a character that had amnesia. But sorry, I didn't get to my point earlier. So my point was that Jason has always struggled with his identity. He gets his mind wiped later. He has been a child of both camps. His sister is a daughter of the Greek manifestation of Zeus. He is a son of the Roman manifestation of Jupiter. So he has always been kind of split in those two worlds, and then we have what happens to him in The Lost Hero, obviously, how he comes to love Camp Half-Blood, and how at the end of Blood of Olympus he decides that he's going to be part of both camps. And I thought it was really poetic how the wound that in the end kills him is basically a reopening of the same wound that he suffers in Blood of Olympus. In Blood of Olympus, he suffers an imperial spear to his chest. He's basically impaled. Just what happens in this book is just that in this book he isn't healed fast enough, and he is stabbed several times by Caligula. And that wound festers, and it doesn't heal until he kind of feels himself, until he kind of becomes at peace with himself again. But it is kind of implied that he is struggling with being at peace. You know, his recent breakup with Piper, he doesn't really know who he is. He's moved back to where his mum came from to have a change of pace and be kind of out of the spotlight. It really looks like even before that he's really struggling. He's got all these plans to keep his promises to the minor gods that he made during Heroes of Olympus about honoring them. It almost seems, and Piper talks about how he has this kind of complete shift in demeanor. I can't say it. Was it demeanor? After he hears the prophecy, it's almost like he's decided that he's going to die. He's made that decision. Like I said, a decision that I could probably only see Frank making another decision like that. Hazel as well, to be fair, because she did it. Out of the main characters. And my point is that I think it was all planned to an extent, because I think it was almost planned, the fact that the fans weren't going to receive Jason very well initially. 1 second. Because it is those kinds of people, those people who are so fundamentally good, so fundamentally, you know, pure, and will always, always, always put honor and duty above all else. They have to present this hard exterior that comes across as boring to most people. And I think it kind of adds to the tragedy in a kind of meta fourth wall breaking way, the fact that we as a fandom collectively underappreciated him, didn't really care about him until it was too late, until he was gone. And I think the other thing that I quite liked is the fact that it's this motif that you can't cheat death. There was a prophecy earlier about how either Leo or Jason was going to die. To storm or fire, the world must fall, and Leo cheated death and Jason paid the price. Because ultimately Leo is the type of person to manipulate and cheat, and I'm not saying he's a bad person, but I'm saying that symbolically in terms of writing and in terms of books. The fact that Jason is the one who in the end pays, who in the end puts himself forward, who in the end pays, I said it twice, in the end is the one who takes accountability for broken promises. It is also implied that part of the reason why he's dead is because Apollo broke his promise to Styx, that he made in the beginning of the Hidden Oracle. He is the one in the end who has to pay for it, because he's the one with the responsibility and the accountability. And he makes that decision and he goes forwards and he faces it without any regrets. And I think the way that his corpse is later described as being somebody at peace, and how Apollo doesn't want to wake him, I think that that is also symbolic of the fact that he would stand by his decision, because he also dies in a moment of shock. He dies protecting them, he dies telling the others to go. He dies because he takes his last moments to lock eyes with Apollo and remind him of his promise, because he knows he's going to die. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So, yeah, heavy stuff. Those are all my thoughts on the Burning Maze. Obviously, Crest's death also at the end also quite hit me quite hard. And we have Leo's reaction, and how I think it was really good. I already mentioned this, how the consequences of death were also explored, as in the coffin and the arrangements for bringing him back to Camp Jupiter. I think it was a good decision to include those as well. Honestly, I can't even think, like, that is such a big part of this book that I can't even mention anything else. I think that's going to be it for my review of The Burning Maze. See you next time on Only One Read. Hi, so this is just like a random addition to this video because it was something that I had, a thought that I had several times over reading The Burning Maze. It's the last kind of thing that I will tag on to the end of this, just because, like I said, I've had this thought for a while and I intended to talk about it when I talked about Jason's death. Spoilers for the Six of Crows duology if you haven't read it, but I honestly think that Jason's death also hit me like a freight train so hard, because it really also reminded me of Matthias's death, and not just because I feel like in fanon at least they have like similar reputations within their respective fandoms. I don't think the intersection between to be fair, they're both like fairly popular series, so I'm sure there are like a good amount of people out there who are both the Percy Jackson and Six of Crows fans. I had really big Six of Crows phase a few years ago. I've read all of the Grishaverse books. I think they have a kind of a similar role in both fandoms. They're kind of thought of as like the blonde himbos. And also though it served like a really similar narrative purpose. The same way that Matthias's death in Six of Crows happens very suddenly and is kind of meaningless. It happens he's killed by a trivial side character. They've kind of already pulled off like the two grand feats, not feasts, of the book of both books. Like he goes through so much and only to die randomly, meaninglessly. Oh my god, I cannot speak today. Yeah, I just wanted to draw that comparison because for me emotionally it's relevant, because I think that that's why also it really hurt me, because it gave me flashbacks to Matthias's death, and I really cried during Matthias's death as well. I think he was dreaming again. He was dreaming of her will haunt me for the rest of my life. Those lines. I'm not gonna go on to like a tangent. Maybe one day I'll make a video talking about my thoughts on the Six of Crows and the Grishaverse universe. But basically those are the first two lines in his first POV, and they are also the last two lines of his last POV when he dies. And it's talking about Nina, who is his love interest. But I know that this is not really relevant to the Percy Jackson universe, and you might not have any idea what I'm talking about, but I felt like I just needed to draw that comparison because it was something that I was feeling and thinking very keenly throughout my reading. Okay, that is it. Even if I have any other thoughts, I'm not going to add them on to this because I want to start editing this video, and some of the footage is literally just me reading the book and crying because I thought I was going to have something to say, but then I didn't. And then I felt like I was on the verge of tears, and I just wanted to keep reading, and I just left the camera rolling for like, I think it was like 3 or 4 minutes. I don't know. I haven't decided if I'm going to include that footage or not. But if I do include it, I'm going to speed it up for comedic effect because I'm not going to just let you sit there with me just like crying for 4 minutes. Yeah. All right. Out. Katie out.